Hello, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Freddie.
Welcome back to the 5th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. Before we get started on this week's exciting new episode, I want to do some housekeeping. To make sure you're getting the latest episodes of our podcast, there's a few things you need to do. If you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music /Audible, you need to hit the follow button so you can get the latest episodes as they are launched. Also, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating on the episodes that you enjoy. On YouTube, you need to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the like button. In all of the platforms, we appreciate you leaving a comment about what you liked, a question about something said, or suggest a topic you'd like to hear covered. Before we get started on this next episode, I just want to take a look back at what we've done so far. Initially, we had an introduction that kind of just gave you an idea of who Freddie and I are. And then we did the love part of Love, Growth, and Narratives, where we kind of talked about our love and how we met and how we came to be how we are right now to this day. And we also talked about growth, gave you a baseline on what that meant to us and what that looked like, as well as narratives, what narratives mean to us, and how we would like to, in our podcast, is make sure that when we are talking about in and out groups that we're giving perspectives of both. And that brings us back to today's episode, which is back on love. And now we're going to go a little bit deeper today. So, Frederick?
So as we get into the discussion of love, we really wanted to do a deeper dive into gender roles and things of that nature. Now, I know that there's a lot of podcasts out there, some of it from a male perspective, saying what the gender role should be, and there's some from the women's perspective saying what they want a man to do and things of that nature. We don't really agree with most of those. I'm not trying to beat up on anybody, but you have to figure out what works for you. And a lot of the stuff that at least I've heard about recently just doesn't seem to work for me. Tiffany, how do you work through those?
Well, I kind of want to go back to how I grew up and why my belief system is the way it is. I know some people, from a biblical standpoint, they have an opinion or belief about what a man is supposed to be a man and what a woman is supposed to be a woman. However,
real quick, not just biblical, but any other religion.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry. So
it's not
religious.
Just right.
Yes. So I don't subscribe to any particular way of thinking or practicing. So growing up, I did not grow up with my dad. And so who I had first was my grandfather and my 2 uncles. And I would say that my grandfather was probably my first male role model. My grandmother never worked. I never knew her to work. My grandfather was the sole provider, as they call them. But there wasn't this hierarchy between them. Keeping in mind, they were born in 1913 and 1908. Okay. My grandmother handled the money. My grandfather brought the money home. My grandmother cooked during the week. My grandfather cooked on the weekend. My grandfather probably spent most of the time taking the kids to things on the weekend, taking them out to the beach, taking them to different events. My grandmother was a part of the PTA, but there was never this, I'm the man, you're the woman, right. You do this, I do that. It's just, my grandfather did what needed to be done, and so did my grandmother, outside of going outside of the house to work. She worked within the home. And then while my mom did get married at some point in my life, anyone that she dated, they all cooked. All of those men cooked. They weren't the greatest, what do I want to say? They weren't the greatest role models in terms of a well-rounded man, but I didn't grow up seeing like, this is what a man's supposed to do and this is what a woman is supposed to do. So that's not what I buy into. I can say, as a person who didn't grow up with a lot of males in my life the entire time, because we moved away from my grandparents and my uncles, I am used to doing things myself and on my own. No brothers. I'm an only child. Just not used to having a lot of male step in. So I know how to do quite a bit of things. Not everything, but I know how to do things on my own. It's not like I'm, damsel in distress, or I can't do things. Am I tired of doing everything? Yes, because who wouldn't be tired of doing everything, right? You want a partner, you want someone to pick up some of the slack, whether it's in a friendship, it's your job, it's your relationship. You want to be able to be with someone that you can count on. And I don't feel like that takes away or adds to my femininity. I just feel like it just helps me relieve stress, knowing that there's someone who's going to handle the things either that I can't do or don't want to do.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like,
yeah, it does.
How about you growing up? Because you grew up with both of your parents.
I did grow up with both of my parents, but it's interesting because my father didn't really have a lot of male role models growing up. And his father was in and out of his life and would never be considered a great role model by any stretch of the imagination. And so my father was always trying to figure it out in real time. And because of that, he didn't really go with the typical gender roles either. He just kind of redefined what fatherhood would be to him on a day-to-day basis because he was trying to figure it out. So he tried a lot of things, but I never felt like he looked at my mother a single way, or that he couldn't do certain things and she had to do certain things. I never grew up with that feeling. And I don't believe in that either. And even in my previous relationships, there weren't the typical gender roles. It's really about who is better at what and who is better positioned to make the decision and to lead that specific thing that we need done. And so for me, I have no problem being led by a person who knows more than I am and who is more capable for that particular task. And so that doesn't bother me at all. So I will defer to you when in a lot of things, like in terms of planning. I suck at planning. I just totally suck at it, especially anything that's long term into the future. I'm just not good at it. Whereas you think about these things all the time. And so that puts me in a position where I just follow your lead because these are things that you're thinking about and I'm not. And so it doesn't hurt my ego, doesn't hurt my manhood at all to follow behind my woman. If anything, I feel pride that I have a woman that can handle a lot of things that I'm not good at. That works for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I am not a spring chicken, and and I didn't get to this ripe old age of 54 without knowing how to do some things and taking on some leadership roles sometimes, and also being able to follow people's lead when I need to. Something that I want to address is I have kind of changed my mindset around this, although I've always felt like, I never had that thought process where I'm going to have a man and he's the head and I'm second and all this other stuff. I never, ever thought like that. I think I used to fight it. I used to fight a man telling me anything because it just wasn't what I was used to. There weren't a ton of positive role male models. Am I saying that right?
Role models, yeah.
In my life. So I didn't have a lot of trust in men. I didn't particularly choose a lot of men who could lead me in anything, could tell me anything, or knew more than me in the areas that I felt I needed someone the most. So I was just like, I don't need this, I don't need that, and I was like, I don't need a man. I want a man. It wasn't like I don't like men and all that other stuff. Well, I did have some issues with men, but
yeah.
But it was more of just feeling like, well, I could do it myself.
Yeah.
And then when I met you, someone who genuinely wants to be a partner and help and alleviate and take things off of my plate, it took me a minute to allow you to do that. Not because you're a man and I'm a woman, all that other stuff. I think I had gotten past that. It's just that I'm not used to asking anyone for anything. I'm used to doing it myself. And I had to be able to trust and let go and realize that it wasn't because I'm weak or that I can't do things. It's just, why should I or anyone have to do everything? I still don't, those things that you pick up, it's still not like related to gender. Like, it's just you that's going to take out the trash and it's just me that's going to cook. You know, Freddie and I do something similar that my grandparents did, where he cooks during the week and I cook on the weekends, or I order on the weekends, one of the two. And then if Freddie can't, if he's down and out because he's sick, then I would pick up the cooking more often. And if I don't feel well, or he just sees I need a break, he'll just jump in and do it. I don't even have to ask. So we just do what needs to be done. We're constantly watching each other's energy and mood and just jumping in when we need to, and not based on anything to do with our genitals, you know. And I definitely defer to Freddie. He has life experiences that I don't have, and he knows things that I don't know. So I defer to him on those things. Doesn't mean I don't give my input. It's not like, oh, he's the man, so therefore he makes the final decision. No, we do that together. There might be some things where he does make the final decision, but it's not because he's a man and I'm a woman. It's just because that he's stronger in that area. Or maybe even I just don't feel like being the one. I'm a teacher. I decide a million things all day for everybody. And sometimes when I come home, I don't want to decide not one more thing. Like, what are we going to watch on TV? I don't even want to decide that because I've been deciding things all day long. But no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm installing a sink or I'm cooking a meal or I'm submitting in the moment, I am still always a woman. You're not going to give me the masculine title because I fix something or lift something or I'm strong or because I'm a boss or whatever. Those things are not just reserved for men. I show up as a woman in many different ways, and I will not be defined by society's version of it.
Yeah, and I think all of those are important, especially to me as a man. I like having a strong woman. And for me, it's a requirement, because I wouldn't want a woman that just defers to me for everything. And then when I'm not around, she falls apart. Right. Not only that, but for those who don't know, I had 3 hip surgeries on the same hip. And so there were times when I was actually down. And to have a woman that can just take over when I can't move and make sure that things still run and make sure that I'm able to get to wherever I need to, whether she has to help me out of the bed or whatever the case may be, I feel comforted. I don't feel emasculated. I feel comforted to have a woman like that, you know, to know that the times when I need to go out of town, that she's going to be safe, that she's strong enough to do what she needs to do. That's critical to me as a man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the trust and the confidence, because and I'm not trying to put anyone else down, but it's like, I can do some things,
yes.
You know? And of course, 2 heads are better than one, at least for me at this point. I'm realizing that more and more, but it's not about, you know, anything else other than that. There are some roles that we have fallen into, but they're not related to our gender or the society's idea of what our roles should be. They're just more related to what we're better at. And then there's things that we both do, like cook and clean. And I would probably say you cook more than I do.
But I enjoy cooking.
You do?
That it's a nice kind of escape at the end of the day, is to chop vegetables or whatever, cut meat.
Yeah. I don't even know why that's ever been assigned to women when, you know, there's so many male chefs, right, in the world, right? Mostly you go to any restaurant, it's pretty much a man back there doing the cooking, but for some reason at home it's taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we just do what we're best at.
Yes.
And then we kind of split the rest based on how the other person's feeling. And you were talking about, like, in your first 2 marriages,
Yeah, and in my first two marriages, I did all the ironing. Why? Because I'm good at that. That's something, I got from when I was in the military and used to have to iron my uniforms and all of that kind of stuff. I was good at that. I also did the lion's share of the laundry, even though I hate putting laundry. I hate the folding and putting laundry away. But in terms of separating the clothes and putting them in the washer and dryer and all of that kind of stuff, that's me. I have no problem at all doing those things.
And I absolutely love that I'm, marrying someone who's like this. Like I don't see myself being, this is no slight to, women who have decided to live this way. I don't see myself just working constantly every minute, because that's basically what we have to do when you take care of a home, and all by myself, just constantly, because I had to do it for a little bit, for a few months, while my mom had her bypass surgery and then Freddie had hip surgery, and they both had surgery like within a month of each other. And I was having to do all of those things. And I'm like, this is way more exhausting than going to work, and teaching's a tough job. But I was like, this is absolutely physically exhausting because it doesn't stop. And so this idea that people place a lot of value on the provider outside the house, providing is more than money. Providing is so much more. And I think both men and women provide in relationships, but we tend to just give that label to men. And the same with protecting, right? Like, what are you going to do if you're home alone while your husband is at work? Are you supposed to like scream in the corner and wait for him to get home, or are you going to protect yourself and your children? So I think we have to be careful about giving people these titles and roles, and instead just doing what you need to do.
Yeah, I think it puts kids in a bad predicament when they see these hard and fast roles, fall apart like they did. I mean, in my childhood, I had a very strong mother. And when my father went out of town for work, my mother was an absolutely capable protector. There was nothing that was going to happen to her babies while my father was on his trip. So we never had to worry about that. Also, I grew up in the shadow of a larger than life sister. My older sister, Gretchen, could just do everything. She had track records and running. She could lift. She could fight. She was also very feminine. She could play with dolls. She was just one of those kinds of people that could do it all. And so growing up with that, I saw what women were capable of. And so I came to expect that out of my relationships. Not that the women had to be larger than life, but they had to be competent enough to handle the load.
Right. And why would we want to stifle the person we choose to spend the rest of our life with? Why would we want to stifle them and give them this ceiling? You can't do XYZ because of your gender,
right,
or you should be doing XYZ because of your gender. I just don't think that's probably the healthiest love. Now, again, there are some couples who totally feel this is the way it should be and they live their lives that way, and that might work for them. But for us, for me as an individual, before I even met Freddie, that lifestyle would never work. And it's just so perfect that he also doesn't think this way. So
yeah, and it's difficult, at least for me, because I have been in relationships where I was told, where you're the man, you need to make all the decisions. I don't want to make all the decisions. And to be honest with you, if I make all the decisions in a relationship, we're probably going to be in pretty tough shape because there are certain things I'm just not good at. But because I'm a man, you're expecting me to make the decision anyway. That doesn't make any sense. If you are more capable than I am at that particular subject, take the lead. I will follow. That does not hurt my manhood at all. It's so I know that for some people that may work. And if it works for you, great. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm telling you that I would be wrong if I followed in that pattern.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like, I don't feel masculine because I made a decision. I think I was listening to I don't know, it was a reel where the woman was saying, I just want to, if a man is totally masculine, then I don't have to think. I don't want to have to think about anything. Like, I can turn my brain off. Like, if we go into a restaurant, I don't even have to say anything. He orders everything we're going to eat. I mean, if that's really what you want to do, that's fine. But I'm not turning my brain off. I didn't go through everything I went through all through life, and went through this education and still paying for it to like turn my brain off. Like, why would I do that? And would I ever tell any of my female students that, or tell my male students that either, that's what the expectation is? Like, no. But if that's what if that's what makes them feel feminine, go for it. Just for me, that doesn't make me feel feminine. It makes me feel ignorant, to be honest with you. Like, it's just not, it doesn't sit well with me. And I don't know. I'm so glad that in this loving relationship, I feel like I have a partner. I feel like I'm valued. I know I can go to him. I know that he can take the lead on something without thinking that he now leads me and he's in control of me in some way. It's just a comfortable, for me, I can relax and feel soft, as they say, that soft life, when I know that I'm respected for who I am, which is I am a strong woman, and I can also be like, I don't want to do anything, just treat me like a baby,
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is, I see this from men and women, where they look at relationships as zero sum, as if I'm doing something for you, that means I'm not doing something for me, and just the inability to see the value in just working for the couple. When I look at us, I'm working towards our relationship. When I'm doing something for myself, I'm doing something for myself so that I can be in a better position to serve her and to serve this relationship. And when I'm doing something for her, I don't look at it as if it's taking from me. If anything, it's adding to me, because I want her to get whatever she wants and whatever she needs, and I feel good about that. And so I've always been against people keeping score, because if you look at in certain circumstances, like over the past year and a half, I had 3 hip surgeries. There were so many times when you had to do basically everything. Now, does that mean that for the next year and a half, you sit around and I do everything? I don't think
No.
that's not where my aim is. What my aim is to, first off, let you know the amount of gratitude I have for what you did, and you took it on without even a consideration. Just, here's what needs to be done, I'm going to do it. So first off is showing you the gratitude. Second off is just making sure that if you're in a similar circumstance, then I take over. And when you do that, everything kind of balances out. And so when I say I'm against the 50-50 thing, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but the way relationships turn out, there is always going to be times when one is doing more than the other, but as long as the other one is cognizant of it and always trying to make sure that they're doing their part, then it's not a big deal.
I agree. And I think for me also, the value of what is being done, right? Because sometimes someone in a relationship who doesn't do much, they do one little thing and they're getting like all this praise, like, oh, he put away the dishes, like, oh my God, it's like this big, huge deal. And but because he doesn't normally, or she doesn't normally do something like that. What I can say with you is that before all these, surgeries, or at least before the last 2, you were there for me and have been, me and my mom, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Freddie takes my mom to doctor's appointments. How time consuming is that, right? Driving over there, picking her up in traffic, taking her to the appointment, and driving her back. This is hours of doing this. My mom has several a week, at least she used to. And I never asked him to do that. He offered, and he feels that if my mom needs to go to the doctor and I can't take her there, it's not a me problem, it's a we problem.
Yes.
And he's always said that this is us. This is what needs to be done for our family. And I cannot tell you the amount of gratitude I have behind that, because I don't know what I would do. I honestly don't have any idea what I would do. Just knowing that I can count on you to do that, or just something as simple the other day. So I'm going to share the story with you guys out there. Freddie his car had a recall. So his car was in the shop for a couple of days. And I needed to go over to my mom's house to do something. I needed to be there by a certain time. So it was like, do I work out, which is something for me because I have trouble doing things for me, or do I go over and get to my mom's house in the time that I needed to, because I wanted to take Freddie to go pick up his car. He's like, no, you need to put yourself first. I will Uber to get my car. You go do your workout and then we'll go to your mom's house together. Like, oh my God, I cannot tell you. I think I've shared this story like 4 times already, because it's just so powerful to me and meaningful to me that he cared enough. He put himself in an Uber so that I could go work out and take care of myself. And then afterwards, he came back and helped me some more with my mom. Like, that's precious to me. And I don't know a lot of men who do things like that or even expected to. And that's extremely valuable to me. I think we expect women to jump in and help out with those kind of things. But when men do it, and coming up to my job and helping me with my students, like, it's not common. It isn't.
Well, I have to disagree a bit, because I know a lot of men that will do those different types of things, especially where I came from in Maryland. A lot of my friends are just that way, where we look at a relationship and everything that goes along with that as a partnership, where if there's something that you need, that means we need it. That means we have to do it. And it keeps from one person trying to prioritize themselves over the relationship. We prioritize the relationship itself over the individuals.
And I want to clear up, since Freddie said he disagreed, I am not bashing. I'm not saying all men, blah, 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 blah. But if we keep it real, okay, women do a lot of labor in relationships.
Yes.
A lot of labor. And it doesn't mean that there's not men who do it. It doesn't mean that there's not relationships where the men do absolutely everything. That absolutely exists. However, I think we can fairly say that it's not equal in the average population. And it's worth talking about. It's worth being realistic about, because I think we get caught up in what people think it should be, or even what they want it to be, instead of like what it is. Like, let's do what needs to be done.
Yes.
It's important in love. To me, it's an action, right? You can't say I love her, but I don't, or him, and I don't do any. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this. I'm a man. I'm not doing this. I'm a woman. You have to do what needs to be done.
Yes.
It's really important. When I belonged to this group, I had to have a hysterectomy some years ago, and I got into this hysterectomy group, a support group on Facebook. And so many of those women, I mean, like the majority of the women, there's like hundreds, if not thousands of women in here, are talking about how their husbands would not help them with anything. They would not pick anything up. They were told, I can't lift more than 5 pounds for 6 weeks. And the men are like, I don't see anything wrong with you. You need to mop the floor. Like, I mean, it was bad. Like, I mean, woman after woman was sharing stories like this. And this is before I met Freddie. But I could not believe how the expectation was in her illness, something that was temporary. She still was expected to do physical labor at home.
Yeah.
It just, and just the other person refusing. And they had kids too. So it's like, I'm not going to cook. Nope, I'm not going to clean. You're going to do it. If it hurts, oh well.
Yes.
Doctor said not to. Like, unbelievable to me. Like, I could not be in a situation like that. Like, that to me is not the way I show love or the way I want to be loved.
Yeah, I think in my situation, it's evolved. I have become a more evolved person than my father, because my father taught me so much. And we talk about this thing that, more lessons are caught than taught. And one of the things that I caught from my father, because he didn't really talk about it a lot, was his effort to constantly be a better man, to constantly be better towards my mother. Now, not that he was perfect towards my mother, but the times when he saw that he wasn't doing the right thing, he had no problem saying, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed this up. I will get better. And he always tried to get better. And even with the mistakes that he made, I learned from all of that. And so what I'm trying to be is a 2.0 version of my father, where I'm taking what he taught me, the good and the bad, and trying to make the most of it. And I hope that my kids, as well as any other kids that are able to see how we interact, can take some of that, the good that they see from it, and build on it. That's how we evolve. But if it hadn't been for my father, who has constantly tried to be better, even in his failures, I learned a lot, because there was the effort that was there. There was the effort to be a better man. And that's kind of the way I live, is that just always constantly making the effort to be a better man. And so in doing so, I think about you, and in terms of what makes you feel good and what makes you feel honored. And so when I'm doing something for you, I can't do something for you that makes me feel good. I have to specifically kind of get into your head and say, what does Tiffany need right now? And sometimes it's easy to figure out. Sometimes there's something traumatic that you've been through where it's easy for me to just jump in. But otherwise, I have to do some thinking, because if I'm going to do something for you, it has to be something that's meaningful to you, that you care about. Otherwise, what's the point? And I say that because I know a lot of guys that, well, not a lot of guys, but I have a buddy of mine who used to screw up with his wife all the time, and then he'd come home with flowers. And it's like, oh, who the hell cares?
Yeah.
And it's not like he was trying to get better. It's like, okay, here's, I just need forgiveness, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
So.
Right. And that's so meaningful for me, that you try to see what I need. I think every partner should do that for each other. No one's excused from that in the relationship, because you're meeting my love language.
Yes.
An act of service is one of my love languages. And so I think it's important to know your partner's love language, because that may or may not go against your idea of what you're supposed to be doing based on a man or a woman.
Yeah.
But if you see someone needs something, just step in and help.
Yes.
I think that's...
Yes. And doing that outside of the romantic relationship, just with my friends.
Right.
If I'm hanging out with one of my friends and, one of us will pay for the meal, we're not keeping score that the other one has to pay next time. Who cares? Who cares? We're friends. We care about each other. We want each other to be okay, and it'll all even out eventually. So we don't think about stuff like that.
Right. And I think that too, money, I think that's a big, huge thing about, a lot of women, or maybe even men, feel that the man should pay for everything, even if she has money and she has a job, or she feels like he should take care of everything and she shouldn't have to work. I mean, if that's what you want to do, okay. But that, if someone needs help financially, your spouse especially,
yes,
why wouldn't you help?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like I said, if people want to do that and that works with their relationship, then go for it. Don't listen to us.
Right.
But
if you find that you're having issues with those things,
yes.
If you find you're having you're with someone, you love them, you care about them, and you're finding you're having issues trying to make them or yourself fit into a certain role, then reevaluate those roles. Don't sit there and fight about those things for years. Do what works to bring both of you along.
Absolutely. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to be fine. So this is why I love our relationship, because I haven't always had a partner where I feel like I could be weak sometimes, because I mean sometimes I'm physically weak, and so to have someone that can just take over and say, don't worry about it, things are still going to run, then it's great. It's really great for me, and it actually makes me stronger knowing that if I'm down, that I do have someone to turn to.
Yeah, and I appreciate I'm being called masculine, trying to act like a man because I'm strong, or because I do something that is considered, to be a male trait, which is very silly. I mean, I'm not peeing standing up.
Right.
It's it's little things, like just, I don't know. So I appreciate that you let me be myself and you don't try to give me the title, try to change my gender because I don't know, opened up a bottle by myself or took the trash out.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate when you are comfortable with me just like chilling and doing nothing, and you take over and you do stuff. Like it feels good. It feels like a really good give and take.
So I think the main message really is for your individual relationship, figure out what works. Don't listen to influencers. Don't even listen to us. I mean, what you do is you can try things that you heard that may seem interesting, but ultimately you have to figure out what works for you, because if your relationship doesn't work, then you have to take some accountability over what you did and didn't do. And so just try to figure out what works for the both of you, and life will be a whole lot easier that way.
I agree. And my last few words basically marry what Freddie is saying. I just feel like don't put yourself in a box and don't put the other person in a box.
That's right.
Right. And if you don't do that, the sky's the limit in so many areas. Just try not to box yourself in about how you're supposed to show up in this world. You're allowed to show up many different ways, and it doesn't make you less or more of a man or a woman.
Yes.
So just allow yourself that freedom.
And I think that this is a good place to put a pin in it for the week. And I really appreciate everyone tuning in, and I hope you get something out of the discussion. And I really would love to see more comments in the comment fields on the Apple and Amazon and Spotify podcasts, as well as on YouTube, where we will eventually go to video.
Yes, we are looking forward to one day being on video. We appreciate how many people are listening to our podcast.
Absolutely.
We can see that there's lots of listeners. Again, as I stated at the beginning, please hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts, Apple Music / Audible, and Spotify, and a 5-star rating. And then on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, hit like, leave us some comments, and give us some feedback. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks again for your time.
We're out.